Welcome to this new how-to. In this how-to we're gonna do the approach and the landing with a Boeing 787. So we just got approval from the HC, and the first thing we need to do is we need to reconfigure the MCDU. So to do that you need to press on DEP ARR, and then you will see the depart or the arriving airport. Here you can press ARR and then just select the approach which you're assigned to, right? So in this case it's 4DME runway 24. So 4DME runway 24, it's here. Did it say something else? So let's check. It says VDOT transition. So VDOT transition is here. So we select it. Now we select route and then press execute, because once we have executed it, it will, I would say, update the flight plan and insert some additional waypoints. So if we open the VFR map, you will see that it's probably doing it like this, which is, I would say, kind of expected. That's what you will see with all, I would say, with almost all aircrafts. So there's one fix that sometimes works, but not for all aircrafts, and that's by deleting some of the waypoints. But it's always a little bit tricky to do that, because you need to first check, okay, which one have I passed, which ones are do I still need to travel to. So in this case you'll see that we're making a turn here to Diesel and then to Raruk, which is here. So what we can do, or what we can try, is we can try to remove VDOT. So press clear and then press VDOT and then press clear again, and as you can see it doesn't work. Sometimes delete works. So press delete and then say VDOT and then hit execute. And let's look what it did now. So let's open the VFR map again. Yeah, so that worked. So that's good. For some aircrafts, like for example the A320, it doesn't work, but in this case we're lucky. So we have deleted the map, so we don't have to fly completely back to the previous waypoint and then back to Raruk, which is the leg which we want to take. Other than that, you don't have to do much, right? They instructed us to go to 4,000 feet, and as you can see the airplane is departing. So what I did is I used the vertical speed option to decrease, so we're decreasing with 1,500 feet what is it, per minute. Yep, so we're decreasing, I would say, pretty fast. Also I changed the speed, but as you can see it doesn't honor that speed. That's due to some issues with the let's say with the auto throttle functionality in the Boeing 787. If you search on the internet you will find multiple people having issues with it. So what you can do is you can either switch off the auto throttle and rearm it. In some cases it will work, in some cases it will not work. I saw different I would say solutions on the internet, probable solutions I should say, but none of them really worked. So it's now a matter of waiting for Asobo to fix it, which might take some time. So as you can see the aircraft is turning into the right direction for the waypoint. So if we would open the VFR map, you can see it, and then we will continue our flight to here to Diesel and then to Raruk, and then we will pass the WW waypoints, and then we can make our approach. As you can see there's a lot of additional waypoints here and intersections. weird thing here is that it still says it goes to V dot, so looks okay. Let's open the VFR map again and go to maybe V dot was here, or is here, sorry. Yeah, V dot is here, so that's fine. So we're going good, everything nice. Speed's a little bit too fast, but as you see, you can change it here, but it simply doesn't react to it. That has to do with the combination in most cases with the vertical speed, and then setting the speed here doesn't always work correctly. That's also what you will find on the internet, that it will not work. So for now, not an issue. So what can we else see? If we look at the screen here, we can see some information. Let me move up the HC a bit. So it says ILS FMC, so we will probably try to use the ILS if available. Of course, we're currently not close enough to the airport. So we can go to the legs again. And that will show us the legs. But if you want to scroll the pages, you can do that by pressing the next option here. So currently we're using this plan. So the previous plan will, I would say, once you set up the destination based on the intersection you should use, or the transition you should use, sorry, any approach, then it will replace the previous flight plan. So we're still descending to 4,000, which was instructed. What you see here is also the auto brake option, so you can switch it on. You can set it to 1 or 2 or max if you want. Not recommended. So then it will use the auto brake functionality of the aircraft. You can also set it to disarm for now. You don't really need it. So we're bypassing almost 7,000 feet. Flaps are still in, I would say, neutral position. That's something we're gonna change as soon as we're, I would say, close to the airport. Probably once we're at Roeruk or something, then we're gonna drop the flaps a bit. Because if we're dropping the flaps, that means that we also need to decrease our speed massively. Because if we would drop the flaps at this moment, it will, I would say, damage the flaps. In the meantime, we can have a look from the outside while the aircraft is descending. Not so much we can see, so probably better to stay in the aircraft. So in this center screen we can see that we're 25 miles, a little bit more, away from VDOT. And we're almost at the, I would say, correct altitude. So probably this was a little bit too steep to decrease. If you want to change the range range, you can do it with this button, the ND button, so you can zoom out. Then also look a little bit further where we need to fly to, right? So here's the airport. So maybe if we look on the to the right, we might see it already. So you can use the Q. So you see here some.
Expect 40 ME runway 24 approach via Phi dot transition. Cleared to Phi dot.
You can see here some lights, and it looks like that here's the runway.
Descend and maintain 4,000 feet. Keep speed below 2 11 knots. Expect 4 DME runway 24 approach via Phi dot transition. Cleared to Phi dot generic 442.
So you can see that we're almost at the requested altitude, and also speed decreases now to 200. And the up and the 1 are referring to the flaps, right? So up refers to the maximum speed, or to the recommended speed of when the flaps are up. 1 if they are set to 1, and it will change as soon as we drop the flaps, then it will show at 2, etc. So you can see auto throttle kicks in, so it still works. Let's see if it really drops to 200. So what we will do in the meantime is we will look at these lights, right? So you can switch on the landing lights if you want. We now would go to the outside of the aircraft, and you will see some additional lights burning. So here and on the other side of course also. So you can leave them on, and then we've got the runway lights, but they are not necessary. Well, I can show you quickly what it looks like. Don't see a lot of difference there yet, but that's due to the fact that the gears are not down. And we've got the taxi light, right, which we need to switch on if we're gonna taxi. In the meantime, we're closing by to VDOT, and in most cases you see the decel point, which is the point which is automatically added to the flight map or to the flight plan. Then you can switch on the approach mode, right? So to show you where the approach mode is, you will find it here on the right side. You will see it's called APP. And then you also have the option to turn on the localizer mode, which will try to intercept the glide scope, so it can follow the glide scope to make, I would say, a nice landing. In some cases it's really handy to do that, right? Especially since the weather is not, I would say, as you hoped. For example, really foggy or something, then you can use that complete, say, almost auto landing. Else it's, well, in most cases people decide to do it manually. So it's really up to you if you want to do it manually. If you want to take the challenge, do that. If you want to make it a little bit easier, and I say a little bit because it still is not easy, then you can use the approach and the localizer button. So now we need to go to 5,500 again.
Maintain 5,500 feet, KLM 641.
There it is. So simply give it some time. If it doesn't react fast enough, what you can do is you can use the vertical speed option again, and then you can make it go a little bit faster. Keep an eye on the speed, because in some cases it will, I would say, not start to increase the speed, and then it will drop down until you're in a situation where you don't want to be. But as long as it stays around 200, it's fine for now.
Siberian Airlines 1136, you are 1.1
You can see we're at VDOT right now.
5,300 feet, expect inspectors, visual runway 14 left approach.
It will now turn to Raruk. So
Climb and maintain
4,500 feet
Expect
right now.
vectors, visual runway 14 left approach, Siberian Airlines 1136. KLM 641 traffic is 9 o'clock, 2 miles at 8,400 feet generic. Report them in sight. Generic 442 traffic is 4 o'clock, 2 miles at 4,800 feet, Boeing B-78X. Report them in sight.
So quickly
KLM
inside.
641 have the generic in sight.
Uniter 3740, you are 46 miles south. Descend and maintain 4,000 feet. Keep speed below 211 knots. Expect 4 DME runway 24 approach via FIDOT transition. Cleared to FIDOT.
So we're almost there.
Generic 442 have
5,200 feet.
B-78X in sight.
Descend and maintain 4,000 feet. Keep speed below 211 knots. Expect VOR DME runway 24 approach via fitted transition. Clear to fitted Uniter 374.
So we're gonna almost turn to
Siberian
Raruk.
Airlines 1136, you are 1,500 feet below your
As you can
assigned
see,
altitude.
it's 1 point
Climb and maintain
something.
5,300 feet altimeter, 29er
So
decimal
now
77.
we're gonna switch on the
KLM 641
approach.
descend and maintain 4,500 feet.
Gonna decrease the speed again.
Climb and maintain 5,300 feet, Siberian Airlines 1136.
Descend and maintain 4,500 feet, KLM 641.
Let's use the approach one in this case. In the meantime, what you can do is you can drop the speed, right? So you can decrease the speed to 190, for example. And you also hear the engine going slower. So it's decreasing. Sometimes it's increasing and decreasing. In the meantime, I'm gonna at least drop the flaps by 1 degree. And this is what I meant, right? So you can see here now there's a 5 in here. So which means that we drop the flaps to the next position. So be aware of that. If you drop the flaps, then you can't, I would say, make the or travel the same speed as without the flaps. You can see that if as soon as we would say drop the flaps a bit, it started to increase altitude again. So we need to help the aircraft a bit to make the approach a little bit faster, because we're almost at WW238. So we're pretty, I would say, close by the airport now. We need to make sure that we're at the correct altitude.
Siberian Airlines 1136, you are 500 feet above your assigned altitude. Descend and maintain 5,300 feet altimeter, 29er decimal
So it's a good
77.
check, right? Check the altimeter, which you can see here. If it's set correctly, because else you won't, else the autopilot will level off to a certain altitude, but it will not be the altitude which the ATC assigns to you.
Siberian Airlines 1136.
So what you can see here is also that the maximum speed for the 5 degrees flap is 200. Right, if you would drop them now again, it will become a lower speed, so be aware.
Generic 442 descend and maintain 4,500 feet.
So I'm gonna change the zoom in a bit more because we're now getting closer.
Descend and maintain 4,500 feet, generic 442.
So we're at the instructed altitude. We're flying lower with a speed lower than 210 knots. So now it's just, I would say, another time to relax, because now the real work begins.
Siberian Airlines 1136, you are 300 feet below your assigned altitude. Climb and maintain 5,300 feet altimeter, 29er
Some cinematic view of the aircraft.
KLM 641 descend and maintain 2,700 feet.
Back to work, because we need to go to 2,700.
Descend and maintain 2,700 feet KLM 641.
So use the vertical speed again.
Climb and maintain 5,300 feet Siberian Airlines 1136. Generic 442 descend and maintain 2,700 feet.
So you can see that based on this, right? The
Descend and maintain 2,700 feet.
game
Generic
things,
442.
those are for ILS. You can see that they're currently not aligned well, right? So once we're in front of the, or aligned with the runway, this one should almost go to the center. And if we're capturing the glide scope correctly, this one should also go to the center. That will make sure that we're on the correct glide scope and we're, I would say, touching the runway on the position that we should touch it. The idle, I would say, the idle touch point.
Siberian Airlines 1136, you are 500 feet above your assigned altitude. Descend and maintain 5,300 feet altimeter, 29er.77.
Let's help the aircraft a bit. My perspective goes a little bit slow.
And maintain 5,300 feet Siberian Airlines 1136.
And the funny thing is that if you look at this one, the closer we get to the glide scope, you will see this one slowly moving to the center, right? So that's cool. So now we need to
Descend
go
and maintain 2,100 feet. Keep speed below 19 or 2 knots KLM 641.
even lower. So it's at 21. So we can zoom, or we can look here, right? So we can see that we're WW239, now we're going to WW241. So you see that we're now going a little bit under the glide scope.
Generic 442, descend and maintain 2,100 feet. Keep speed below 19 or 2 knots.
So saying it correctly? Yeah, I think so, yeah. So it's almost now at 2100, so I think that this this was a little bit too, I would say, too aggressive mode, where we went down too fast.
KLM 641, you are 8 miles east of Vnukovo. Contact Vnukovo
So
Tower
we got
on
approval now.
19.0 when inbound on the approach.
So we're gonna contact the approach.
Tower on 119.0 KLM 641. Vnukovo Tower KLM 641 8 miles east inbound for DME runway 24 approach.
KLM 641 Vnukovo Tower. Cleared for DME runway 24 approach. Altimeter 29er.80 wind 330 at 10.
So we're gonna acknowledge.
Cleared VOR DME runway 24 approach KLM 641.
So now we got the approval. We're gonna, as soon as we're, I would say, flying straight,
Vnukovo Tower.
then we're gonna drop the
4426 miles east inbound for DME runway
gear.
24 approach. Generic Papa Bravo Delta 442 Vnukovo Tower. Cleared for DME runway 24 approach. Altimeter 29er.80 wind 320 at 12. KLM
See, now it's
641
here.
cleared to land runway 24. Wind 320 at 12.
So we're gonna
Cleared for DME runway
acknowledge.
24 approach generic 442.
Cleared to land runway 24 KLM
If
641.
you would look now at the position here, it says it captured the localizer. As you can see, it also pulled down the aircraft a bit. One of the cool things I think, or at least I like to do, is go on under the aircraft and make the landing. So at this moment you should, I would say, get your hand to the throttle and also to your joystick.
Clear to land runway 24. Follow the Boeing B-78X on final. Wind 320 at 12. Clear to land runway 24.
And you can leave the autopilot switch on, right? So we're gonna drop the flaps a little bit more. This we're gonna go to full flaps. Oh, we should have done that earlier. Now it's time to take control. So what I did is I switched off the autopilot.
50, 40, 30, 20.
Now guys, I'm going too high, a little bit lower.
10.
And that is the auto throttle issue, right? So the auto throttle issue is that it simply doesn't decrease when we're driving on not all the wheels of the aircraft. And also the automatic, I would say, braking doesn't work perfectly. So now it's time to go inside the aircraft again. So this is something you need to keep in mind. This aircraft has its issues, unfortunately.
KLM 641, turn next taxiway.
So we're gonna follow the taxiway. You can see there's a lot of, there's some snow here on the runway.
KLM 641, contact ground on 119.45.
So we're gonna go to ground.
119.45 KLM 641.
In the meantime, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna request to the gates.
Vnukovo ground KLM 641 taxi to the gate.
We're gonna switch on the
KLM 641, taxi to gate
runway
23,
lights,
1 via
also
taxiway,
taxi.
Alpha 13 Mike 2, cross runway 1 Mike 1.
Gonna acknowledge.
Taxiing to gate 231 using taxiway Alpha 13 Mike 2 cross runway 1 Mike 1 KLM
Well, we need to taxi to.
641.
So that means we're going to taxi to gate 231. So what I showed you, right, is that if you, I would say, throw the flaps to full at the end, the aircraft will, I would say, take or might take some weird actions. Also, it went for full engine power, which I also read on the different internet sources, that it will go to touch and go, or and in case of touch and go, right, that's if you miss an approach, that's the mode which you will use to, I would say, instead of making or proceeding to land, is make more altitude and then try it again. And that's also what I read on the internet, that happened to several people. That's why it's, in this case, might be wiser to use the manual approach instead of the autopilot once you're aligned to the runway. You can see it's well, not that busy, but there are more aircrafts in the neighborhood. There's one coming now which lands, so there's a car here. Why doesn't ATC warn me about it? Luckily you don't crash if you drive over those cars. There's an aircraft standing in the middle of the runway. Nice. Sorry, not runway, taxi. Cool. Well, we can do two things now, right? We can wait or we can move around it. So we're gonna move around it, and the reason I'm gonna do that is because I don't think there's someone in the aircraft, because there's really no lights burning, etc. Here's another one. So I think the route which flight simulator sets automatically might not be 100% accurate. So we're almost there. Slow down speed a bit. Then we're gonna use our main trick to do the turning, right? So press the start key, which will make it easier to turn. But sometimes you need to make up a little bit speed. Probably aircraft mechanics are not happy with this option or how you do it, but how we do it. But there's in Flight Simulator I didn't find any other option to turn correctly with this this airplane. There's also no help for us. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask for the jet to be connected. Hopefully we're on the correct space, correct place. Looks pretty okay. Why there's a position normally on the ground, which I will try to show to you. Not sure if it's really clearly visible with all the snow, but normally there's let's say a mark here which tells if you're on the correct spot. I think we were a little bit too far, to be honest, but yeah, no problem. So let's see if the jet is already connected. Looks like so. As long as the jet connected, I'm happy. So then we can request baggage service, of course.
Vnukovo ground KLM 641, could you please send the baggage?
So then we're gonna.
KLM 641, we don't know where the baggage is.
Okay, cool. Well, the baggage is in the aircraft, my friend. So maybe you can send a truck. I've seen this message earlier, so it doesn't surprise me. In some case, when you ask for it again, it will do. So we're gonna ask for a power supply. Then we're gonna switch off the engines. So we're gonna cut off the fuel control.
KLM 641, no ground power unit is available.
Looks like nothing is available on this airport. So we're gonna switch off the lights. So strobes, runway, landing lights off. De-icing off. Fuel pumps off. And will become a lot more silent now. So the generator's off. So weird thing is, of course, that it says here it's that the external power is available. So we're gonna simply switch it on. Gonna switch off the APU generators. These ones are already set off, and in that case we're gonna switch off the battery also. Logos, we can switch them off. So to end this flight you really need to, I would say, also disconnect the external power, because as you can see currently the systems are still working. That's due to the external power. So here ends this video. In this video we looked at how you can do the approach and landing with Boeing 787, which worked, I would say, pretty well. There were some challenges, of course, with the autopilot, which didn't react like we expected, but it worked, I would say. So keep in mind that if you use it, that you're switching off the autopilot prior to, I would say, making the final approach and landing, because it could result in that I would say, that the approach is a little bit nasty, which is hopefully will be fixed in one of the next releases of Flight Simulator, which are delayed a bit. So next week hotfix will be released due to some flap issues which were introduced in World Update number 3. So that's a lot of info, right? So again, hope you liked the video. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you've got questions or comments, then use the comment box below the video. And if you'd like to see more of these videos or want to stay up to date about videos I'm posting, then consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.